Hello everyone, this is Wes Henson, pastor of the Ridge Church, and the Ridge Church campus is located at 7350 Old Highway 13 in Carbondale, Illinois. And this week we are in session 4 of our study of Elijah, living outside the comfort zone. In week 1 we were introduced to King Ahab and Queen Jezebel of Israel. They were leading the people away from the worship of God and to worship the false god Baal, who was the god of thunder and rain and lightning. He was responsible for the crops to grow and all the bounty of the land. And we were also introduced in that first week to Elijah. And Elijah confronts King Ahab, telling him that it's not going to rain for a long, long time. And this was a direct challenge to Baal, and it took courage for Elijah to do that. And the point of that first week's lesson was that serving God often takes courage. And then in session 2, we learned that serving God should be fueled by trust in God. And we saw that play out as God sends Elijah to a widow and her son in the center of Baal worship in Sidon. And furthermore, the widow has nothing to provide for Elijah, but both Elijah and the woman trusted God to provide. And then last week our point was we need to serve those around us through consistent prayer. And Elijah demonstrated that truth as he prayed for the widow's boy's life, for his life to come back to him. And the lesson in that last week's session was that we need to pray boldly for others because we never know the impact of our prayers. Okay, click below for a 2-page outline and a study guide of this week's lesson, and then join us at the Ridge Church on Sundays at 9 a.m. or on Tuesday on Facebook or our website. Okay, let's look at today's lesson. In 1 Kings chapter 18, we find that Elijah is embroiled in a battle of sorts. His loyalty to God was on display, and he challenged others to that same loyalty. And his challenge confronts us still today to be loyal to God. In fact, that's the point of our lesson. God deserves our loyalty and service. All right, let's jump into 1 Kings chapter 18. We're going to go on down to verses 20 and 21. And let me read part of verse 20. Ahab summoned all the Israelites and gathered the prophets at Mount Carmel. And then Elijah approached all the people and said, "How long will you waver between two opinions?" And the truth here in these two verses is that we should not waver in our loyalty to God. So even after 3.5 years of drought, Ahab, Jezebel, and the people of Israel still held on to their Baal worship. And throughout Scripture, God has made it plain that he seeks our love and that he will not tolerate our divided loyalty. To love God is to love him first and foremost, above all other allegiances. Loyalty to God means surrendering any semblance of devotion to lesser gods. This was the choice that Elijah set before God's people. Choose you this day. And then Elijah challenged the prophets of Baal to a contest. Whose God is going to light the altar of sacrifice? So first of all, Baal and his prophets and followers, they set up an altar. And then after that, Elijah set up his altar, and they waited on the Lord or Baal to light the sacrifice. Let's move on down to verse 22 of chapter 18. And I'm going to begin reading in verse 25. Then Elijah said to the prophets of Baal, "Call on the name of your God, but don't light the fire." So they took the bull that he had given them, prepared it, and called on the name of Baal from morning until noon, saying, "Baal, answer us." But there was no sound, and no one answered. So the truth here is that other gods will always be proven to be false gods. Loyalty to God is often an unpopular position, but it's always the right position. And that soon will be evident to all who gathered on Mount Carmel. We'll see this in these next verses, in verses 36 through 39. And I want to read part of verse 38. Then the Lord's fire fell and consumed the burnt offering of the wood, of the stones, and the dust, and it licked up the water that was in the trench. When all the people saw it, they fell face down and said, "The Lord, he is God. The Lord, he is God." So the truth here is that God proves that he is the one true God. So when God sent fire from the skies to burn up the sacrifice, you see, Baal's prophets had called out to Baal all morning and afternoon, and nothing happened. But then Elijah has his turn, and he has water doused on the wood, the altar, the stones, the sacrifice, even the trench that's dug around it. And the Lord sends the fire, and everything is consumed. And the Lord proves that he is the true God. So when God sent fire from the skies to burn up the sacrifice, he far surpassed what anyone could have anticipated. The fire consumed the wood, the stone, the sacrifice, the soil, and even in the water. And in the presence of such overwhelming evidence, the people were smitten. Okay, here's the application of today's lesson. Number one is talking about idols. You know, we all have idols, and we need to list those idols that tempt us from making God our first allegiance. And then we need to make the choice to relinquish them. And second application here is it would be good if we could study some other sources to defend our belief in God as the only true God. And there are many books out there that can help us do that. C.S. Lewis' book, Mere Christianity, is a good one. Timothy Keller, The Reason for God, is another good book. Lee Strobel, The Case for Christ, is another great resource to study. And then our third application is to stand. Determined to stand for God in your community, even when it's not popular to do. Okay, as we wrap up this week's lesson, I'm going to give you our take home, which is our point, and that is this: God deserves our loyalty and our service. Okay, that's the lesson for this week. Click below for a 2-page outline and a study guide of this lesson. And I hope you will join this study at the Ridge Church on Sundays at 9 a.m. or on Tuesday on Facebook and our website. Okay, bye for now.